In thinking back on the days of Easy Company, I'm treasuring my remark to a grandson who asked, "Grandpa, were you a hero in the war?" "No," I answered, "but I served in a company of heroes." That, of course, if you have ever watched or you've read this book, is from Band of Brothers. Just finished reading it literally yesterday, so I thought I'd come on here and I give a bit of an overview, bit of a review, just some of my thoughts, what I found interesting. I thought it was an amazing book, amazing book. The series is amazing. It's critically acclaimed. Tom Hanks, Steven Spielberg, Damian Lewis as Major Dick Winters, Donnie Wahlberg as Carl Lipton. The cast is amazing. But compared to the book, are they the same? Yes and no. There's a lot that they obviously couldn't cover in the show. It was a mini-series after all. They couldn't cover everyone, which is why in the book, when you go through it, you read a lot of names of people who were in Easy Company that you might not necessarily know. But obviously they're still integral to the story, the overall story of Easy Company and its journey from Oldbourne in England to Normandy to Holland to Belgium and then on to Germany as well. So as you go through the book, what I found anyway was that especially if you've watched the series, you're reading and you're like, oh wow, okay, so this is that bit of the episode, and I was kind of playing it in my head as I was reading through, like, oh well, yeah, that's that bit, and so for example, the Braco Manor incident, is described really well in here. So is the attack on Foy with spears, and when he just gung ho and runs through and relieves Lieutenant Dyke. So if you've watched the series, it's a good way because you read it and you go, oh wow, okay, yeah. But like I said, there's a lot of other details and people that weren't in the series, but it's really nice to read about them in the book. For example, one really amazing thing was that I think Malarkey is actually friends, or is kind of like loose friends with one of the Nyland brothers. I think they end up crossing paths I think it's somewhere in England, I can't remember. But yeah, he's loosely friends with one of the Nyland brothers, and the Nyland brothers is what Saving Private Ryan is based off of, which I thought that was a crazy cool coincidence. Which just watching the series, you wouldn't know that because that's a small detail that's missed out. Another detail that I thought was amazing. This is very niche, so I don't know if it will make sense. But obviously, if you've watched the series, you remember the Bastogne episode where they're surrounded, very limited ammunition, equipment, barely any food. They can't be resupplied because there was terrible cloud and fog cover. Every time they did try to resupply them, they would end up dropping it to the German lines. And the German commander wrote a letter to the American commander. I can't remember his name. I know it ends up being General McAuliffe who kind of takes over, I think because General Taylor is in England on leave. So I think he gets the letter. Or I might have got that the other way around. I'm not 100% sure on that one. But anyway, he gets this letter from the German command and he says, you're surrounded, you should just surrender to save yourself any further losses. And famously, General McAuliffe just writes back to the German High Commander, nuts. So, what was funny about this story, another story in this book is, and I quote, officers were ordered to turn in the silk escape map of France they'd received before the jump into Normandy or be fined $75. As those maps were damn near sacred to the D-Day veterans, there was universal non-compliance. When told to pay the fine, Winters replied for the entire battalion, taking his line from General McAuliffe, nuts. The regimental supply officer, Captain Herbert Sobel, backed down. And I thought that was just amazing. I thought that was very full circle. It kind of combined everything because you have Sobel, who's the officer in charge of collecting these maps. And even in the series and in the book, it's, he's described even more, and you really get a sense of this guy's just horrible, and just has something against these people, and for no apparent reason. And obviously, it then comes back, so you've got him, and then it combines the story from Bastogne of Nuts, and it's Winters who says it as well. So it's kind of like the three big pillars, so to speak, of Easy Company coming together, which is amazing. And also, one of my favorite bits is also mentioned in the book, obviously from the series, is when in the series, obviously it's set up a bit different. It's when, in the series, I believe it's when the Germans have surrendered, and I think they're on like a big open field, and it's I think it's just after the German generals surrendered to Lipton, and then he said, "Can I speak to my men?" And he's spoken to his men, and Winters and Nixon and Liebgart are kind of off to the side. They're just listening to it, watch it happen, kind of overseeing it or whatever. And Sobel walks through, and he sees Winters and Nixon and Liebgart, and he just kind of nods to Winston and just goes, "Major Winters." And famously, Dick Winters kind of shouts at him, and he goes, "Captain Sobel," and he goes, "We salute the rank, not the man." And that is described in the book as well. In the book, it's apparently they're at a supply depot, but it's very much similar, where he's trying to just walk past him, and Winters just is a bit like, "Hold on a minute, you've got to respect the rank." So I imagine Winters got a lot of satisfaction from that. But yeah, overall, the book is really, really good. It does a really good job of, laying out the timeline, and you get a sense. I think even if you hadn't have watched the series and you read the book first, I don't know how that would be. Maybe you'd be a bit more disappointed because you'd read all these things, and you might gravitate towards a certain soldier that's mentioned. For example, Webster gets quite a lot mentioned in the book, I think because he wrote a lot during the war to his mother and father. He gets quite a bit of mentioned. He's kind of like almost like the moral compass of the book, because his feelings were very strong towards the Germans and the overall war and the army, compared to other people who I think were just kind of there just to do a job. He was there to do a job as well, but he made his feelings very, very apparent. So in the book, he's very front and center a lot of the time, whereas in the series, he is. But again, it's a series, so it's limited. They can't go into proper detail of, you can't show him writing to his mum and dad every other scene, because it wouldn't make sense for a TV show. So yeah, had you read the book first and then watched the series, you might be a bit disappointed. But I think that's media in general nowadays is whatever it is. If a book is transferred to television or film, they're going to have to cut things out, obviously. But I'd say it's a really good companion to the series. It's good to learn those little details that couldn't quite make it into the television show. And it's really good. It is really good. And I'm very, very, is proud the right word? I don't know if proud's the right word. But I actually started reading it when I was in Normandy, and I was sat looking at or overlooking Omaha Beach. Actually, I thought that would be quite nice. So I started reading it then, and then I finished reading it this weekend just gone, just after the 80th anniversary of VE Day. So I thought that was really nice. You might say that was a long time to take to read a book, and I'm a very slow reader. I like to digest things. I like to try and absorb the information and try and remember the facts, so then I can pass it on, and I can, tell people, things that are in it that they might not know. So I thought that was a nice full circle moment as well. But overall, what can we learn? I think what I want to try and do is whatever I do on this channel, whether it's somewhere I go, something I read, I want to try and give a lesson that we can take from anything from history, just one lesson. And I think the one from Band of Brothers and Easy Company is that you will always, if you find people that you get on with, and you have that really close bond with them, I think that is really, really super important. You know, if you take the example for Sobel, for example, you know, he was a hard ass. He was on them for absolutely everything, and that inevitably would have got them down, and it made people angry. It would have made people stressed, and maybe made some of the men question their decision to sign up and try and help and fight. But it was the comradeship that they got after that. You know, they came together, that galvanized them, because they were like, this guy is on us, so we've got to stick together, we've got to look after each other. And I think that's the biggest lesson we can take, is just, even when times are hard, try and come together with the people that resonate with you. You know, you're always gonna have people that, you know, you don't necessarily line up with or agree with. That's fine, as long as you stay with your group and you look after one another. I think, you know, the world would be a better place if everyone just kind of came together, as everybody did in this book. You know, it's not just Easy Company. You know, you've got all the other companies, all the other regiments. You know, the 82nd Airborne. You know, the British, Canadian. You know, it's, even though it is a book about Easy Company, it also has an overall picture of the war as well. And we've got to try to not lose sight of that it's not just one company, one regiment, one country that did a lot of the hard work. It was, again, people coming together for a common cause to make the world a better place. So yeah, that's just a little bit of a quick review of Band of Brothers. Yeah, thanks for sticking around, and I'll see you next time.